Hey everybody, so I got a request for a topic that I'm always happy to talk about, and that is the top 10 of my favorite Residence albums. And so the person who requested this video certainly knows how to get on my good side because they wanted me to also talk about the influence that the Residents had on my 2022 solo album Nowhere Land. Regular viewers to my channel will know that in 2022 I did a solo album that was inspired by the horrific and tragic life story of Chris Chan. And so they specifically wanted to know if I was influenced by the albums Tweedles and God in Three Persons with regards to the frank and disturbing discussions and depictions of sexual violence that occur on the album. And yes, absolutely, you hit the nail on the head, and very good. And that was why it was one of the reasons I'm more than happy to grant your request, because you have demonstrated extraordinary musical literacy. So that's very cool. And I will go on to say that once I give you an example of a specific influence, the narrative voice, the narrator on the Nowhere album was inspired by Mr. X indeed, in the sense that it goes through all of these wild, shifting voices rather than being a stable voice throughout the album. It's this wildly chaotic narrative voice that jumps from remorseful to contemplative to belligerent to sarcastic to manic, and all other sorts of perspectives. Because with the person of Chris Chan, if you follow his story, you will find yourself feeling pity and disgust and anger and just a whole swarm of emotions. And I really loved how the Residents dealt with that on God in Three Persons. And so while the narrative voice on Nowhere Land is a different type of person, Mr. X, we get the impression, is like this kind of gnarled old man, this, aging con man and that sort of thing. The narrative voice on Nowhere Land is maybe a somebody that spent their youth trolling on the internet and has grown up and is now reflecting on their actions and asking if it was worth it and that kind of thing. But that wildly chaotic shifting of tone was absolutely inspired by how the Residents, handled their narration on God in Three Persons. So absolutely, and if you're just coming to this as a Residents fan, I can say that yes, if you're a Residents fan, you're going to love Nowhere Land. It's an absolute freak show, no pun intended. But anyway, and then you were also talking about some of the MIDI stuff in there. There's a lot of influence. This is about the Residents, not my solo album, obviously. But to answer your question about like some of the MIDI patchwork and everything that went into that, you mentioned the introduction to. If someone wants to timestamp when I actually start doing the list, that would be great. Anyway, but you asked about on the song "The Cult of Cringe," where it has this big epic sounding opening and everything. That was very much that particular section was very much inspired by Ziggy Stardust and like the Moon Age, the grandiosity of Moon Age Daydream and things like that. And it's its own song, but it's still trying to capture that kind of feeling of like the rock and roll messiah descending upon us and everything. So without further ado, let's jump into the actual list. So I want to say from the outset, I have some honorable mentions in addition to the top 10. You're going to find, amazingly, that some of the more popular Residents output actually does not make this list. And I could probably do they've got such a vast catalog, I could probably do a list of my least favorite Residents albums as well. But I want to focus on the positives. So coming in at number 10 is Duckstab, and I bumped my original top 10 down to the honorable mentions for Duckstab, because I feel like it's such a pivotal record in the Residents' career. It was what got them got them so much attention, and it became, not that the Residents have ever had a truly a hit album or had hit singles or anything like that, but it was what I think really on a lot of levels got the ball rolling for them. It got them a lot of notoriety, and as people have pointed out, if nothing else, it's an album that you can put on, and it's an album that you can put on and scare the hell out of people, that kind of thing. It's a great introduction to the Residents. Well, that's the thing, though. I say it's a great introduction to the Residents. It's really not, because they have other stuff that I feel like is a better way to get into them. More developed stuff, better composed stuff. There are these moments of beauty and brilliance on Duckstab. Blue Rosebuds is probably my favorite song off of that. Hello Skinny is an amazing song too. There are these moments of just haunting beauty, and Hello Skinny really is just a truly, like, that could, I would love to see someone like a David Firth do a music video of Hello Skinny. Just, it's exactly that kind of song. It's very haunting, and it's got like an almost William S. Burroughs quality to it, So there's some amazing stuff on there, but then other songs just feel like irritating soundscapes, like we're just trying to aggressively get on your nerves. Songs like Sinister Exaggerator fall somewhere in the middle. And it's kind of like to me, even though it's one of their most popular and beloved releases, and a great record ultimately, it still feels like a transitional record for me. Like you listen to the very, very, very early Residents recordings, and this even includes Meet the Residents, and a lot of it just sounds like they're taking the piss. You're wondering, are these people serious, or is it a joke? And you're always kind of leaning towards this as a joke. And as they evolved, they started taking what they were doing more seriously. I think when they found that they could actually make a living at it, they kind of started taking it more seriously. And and so as a result, they started kind of, I think, putting some more effort into it. So Duckstab to me is a transitional step between these two stages, the early stage and the more mature stage. And granted that the Residents never actually learned to play instruments, but they did eventually start hiring people, like Snakefinger and Chris Cutler and all the, Fred Firth and all these people that could actually play, to come in and play their compositions for them and everything. Or with them and everything. So the music started evolving, and, just kind of by sheer force of will. So to me, Duckstab still sounds very young and immature, but it's a very important record. Number 9 is Tweedles, and this is the other one the person, the OP, was asking about with regards to depictions of sexual violence in my work and that kind of thing. Tweedles is Tweedles is an album told from the point of view of a sexual predator that is that has he has an alternate personality as a party clown, and so it's told like, to give you an idea of how I have the sleeved special edition, limited edition version of Tweedles, where the CD comes in a sleeve, and it's in the center of the sleeve is it says Tweedles, and in the center is what looks like a cartoon face of a clown with a long nose, with a clown nose, clown nose on the end of it, and smiling and everything. And then when you pull out the sleeve, and you're holding the actual album cover is revealed it's revealed that that's actually his, the clown face is painted on his groin area, and the long nose with the clown nose on the end of it is actually his penis. And so that's the kind of album we're dealing with here. And it's such a fascinating record. It's one of their latter period records so you start to hear really good, you hear some really solid production, some really solid instrumental performances from the players they have on that record. And it's another one where the singing resident is mostly narrating as opposed, just like in God in Three Persons, he's narrating, and then there's kind of Greek choir sort of call and response things that are more melodic. Such a just deeply unsettling record. And like, for example, if you've not heard it, for example, there's a passage where he's talking about how his hard on is like his erect penis feels like an organic gun, and he wishes he could load it and shoot it again and again. And it's so deeply unnerving, but surrounded by such captivating music. It's really phenomenal. Funny story, if you know the movie The Blind Side, I was actually an extra in The Blind Side, and I was in all of the crowd shots for the football scenes. And after a while, like all of those crowd scenes, we would start filming as soon as the sun went down, and then it would last until the sun came up, and it was just like 12 hours in, not 12 hours, but like 8 or 9 hours in the dark every day, and it was just so fucking boring and grueling. I stopped participating after a while. I don't give a fuck about football anyway, but I was just sitting there and not doing anything, but I got paid for it. But anyway, one night it got so incredibly boring that I sat there and listened to Tweedles all the way through while I was watching Sandra Bullock yell at some. No, that was one night that was while I was still paying attention. This is irrelevant, I know, but no, it was we had. I remember it was while we had to get up and move and film on the other side of the field. I listened to Tweedles all the way through while I was going through that shit. And I remember there was this one woman, they were coming up in the stands and asking if any of us could play football, and because they realized they were going to need more extras for like a shot they were doing on the football field. And this one woman volunteered her son that apparently played like pee-wee football, and he was all of about 4'8", but she was like pushing for him to go out and do that, and he didn't, thank God. So long derivation anyway. Tweedles, great album. Number 8 is God in Three Persons, and it is such a again, it deals with themes of sexual immorality, sexual kind of psychosexual distortions of reality, if you will. A very much an influence on me, and just a really cool album. And again, such a great thing where you see them really develop a character really well, and this person, and this kind of deep internal monologue. The music's great too, and everything. So great record. Number 7 is Freak Show. Freak Show is actually in a roundabout way what got me into the Residents. I had been reading computer gaming magazines, and that were talking about this new CD-ROM game that came out called Freak Show, only it wasn't really a CD-ROM game, or a game, it was more of like an interactive movie or interactive experience. But they were talking about it, and it just seemed so cool. They had all the artwork from Jim Ludke and everything, and it was just such a cool looking world of this thing. It would be much longer before I actually played it, but I was just fascinated with this from the outset. And then when I moved to Mississippi with my parents, as it was just before my 12th birthday, but I remember we were in the local bookstore, which had a kiosk, rotating kiosk of CD-ROMs, like educational stuff from Voyager Media and all of that. And one of the things they had on the kiosk was the Residents Freak Show. Sadly, what they had was for Mac, and we didn't have a Mac computer at the time. But I remember holding that thing and looking at it, and like the room I was standing in just got infinitely cooler because this thing was in it, the CD was in it. But I was a Residents fan from that moment on, and I hadn't even heard their music yet. And it would still be a few more years before I did hear their music. Freak Show, the album, if you can find the CD-ROM, play the CD-ROM. Actually, you know what? No, go on the Residents Facebook page. The actual official Residents Facebook page posted links to where you can get Freak Show and Bad Day on the Midway for free. You can download them both for free, and so that's how I've got them now on my PC laptop. And then Bad Day on the Midway was the CD-ROM follow-up to Freak Show. I actually would kind of call myself more of a fan of, in terms of the actual product, the actual release, more of a fan of Bad Day on the Midway as a game than a Freak Show. I think Bad Day on the Midway better realized the idea, but Freak Show was still what got me into the Residents, and Harry the Head is a fucking great song. Number 6 is Not Available. This one really blew my mind because, as I understand it, this was done right around the time of Vileness Fats, or even between Vileness Fats and Meet the Residents. Like, what they did was they did the album, and then the idea was to record an entire album, shelve the thing, and forget about it until they had forgotten that it existed, and then put it out. Then maybe put it out once they dug it up or something. It's like a time capsule. And while they were making Eskimo, the label got tired of them. They spent so much time in the studio that the label got tired of them waiting to release Eskimo, and they went and got Not Available and put that out as a stopgap record. I actually like this record more than Eskimo. It's not, Eskimo's not bad. It just I'm not as passionate about it as I am some other things. And so Not Available is this wild kind of like demented opera in a way, and it has these long song sections that are these long extended epic, like 10-minute songs and everything, and there's something almost Wagnerian about it, and it's very haunting and very surreal. And I've seen it on a lot of lists that are like the most disturbing albums on the internet and stuff like that, and deservedly so. But such a cool album, man. I keep saying that, but yeah, it's just a fascinating record, and I actually think it's a pretty good one if you're just getting into the Residents. It's a good introduction. Then number 5 is Fingerprints. Now, Fingerprints to me, and if you're not part of the the Residents fandom already, it's Fingerprints, Prince spell like the royalty, Fingerprints. But Fingerprints to me is a better realization of what they were aiming for with Duckstab, because it's from a sonic standpoint, it's not quite as abstract. It's a lot more concise, and there's a lot more the themes that they're actually trying to get at are a lot more readily apparent. So, for example, like they have a song called the God Song that's about God creating the human race and then suddenly being overwhelmed with prayers from billions of people and just wanting to be left alone. And so that's the thing, I can point to that song and say, that's what that's about. Whereas a lot of even the stuff on Duckstab is so abstract that it's impossible to, it's impossible to say what it's actually about. But it's a less abstract thing. There's less reliance on abstract noise and more of a focus on actual through composed ideas, compositional, realized compositional ideas and that sort of thing. And but it still has kind of that early wry Residents sense of humor. I always felt like it came out before the Eyeballs and Top Hats were a thing, but I always looked at the Eyeballs and Top Hats iteration of the Residents and imagined that like what if these creatures with the top hats and eyeballs for heads were like appearing to you in a state of sleep paralysis or something. And that's what I always imagine when I hear the song You, Yes, 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 You, and stuff like that. And then there's larger conceptual pieces, the Walter Westinghouse and 6 Things to a Cycle and all of that are really very cool, kind of bohemian, baroque, avant-garde, rock in opposition type stuff. So yeah, Fingerprints, great album. Another great introduction to the Residents. Number 4 is another great introduction to the Residents, and this is an album called Our Finest Flowers. Now, this is really cool because what they did with it, was they were planning to they were coming up on a decade's, I think a 20th or 30th anniversary or something, And they were coming up on this anniversary. They wanted to put out a retrospective, and according to legend, what happened was they wrote down a list of all the songs they were going to put on this retrospective, and then one of them threw up on it. And so when that happened, they looked at the now destroyed list, and all of the titles were all jumbled up. And so they said, well, what we should do is take all of these songs and take the components of these songs and kind of mash them up and make something new. And it is really cool what they come up with, and they came up with new songs having merged all of these things together. And it is very accessible. It's a later period where they were more musically developed and refined, and they have a song on there called 44 No More. It's probably my favorite song. It's just a great blues song, and it has a very like Tom Waits vibe to it. The Sour song is really good. It evokes a really, the residents are from Louisiana, and it evokes a great southern, gothic kind of quality to it and everything. So a lot of great writing on that album. And then number 3, Wormwood. So Wormwood is their album that it's called Wormwood, Curious Stories from the Bible. And they wanted to tell all of these stories from the Bible, but they wanted to kind of emphasize the ones that we don't like to think about. There's only one song about Jesus on the album. It's called Judas Saves. And the rest is dealing with Sodom and Gomorrah. It's dealing with Absalom. The song about Absalom hanging by his hair is probably one of my favorites on the album. And it goes into all of these different surrealist interpretations of stories from the Bible. Probably my favorite on there is called "I Hate Heaven," and it's the Song of Solomon. And we get the story of the Song of Solomon from the perspective of this woman that's being preyed upon and that kind of thing. Which, if you stop and read the Song of Solomon, there is there is almost an ominous undertone to it in a way. So they find these very haunting and very surreal takes on these stories from the Bible. And sonically, from a musical standpoint, they have it's incredibly creative. There's a lot of really cool hand percussion on here, a lot of really cool hand percussion on the album, a lot of really cool live percussion and that sort of thing. And they actually toured, a lot of in a lot of previous tours they've done, like, they being the kind of band that they are, they've done like, programmed drums like Kraftwerk and that kind of thing. And with the Wormwood album, they actually had live drums. That's when they started having live drums. People have, I'm not sure who the live drummer is. The Residents, if you're just joining us, if you're just coming to the Residents for the first time, they're officially an anonymous band. I know who they all are, but they are officially an anonymous band, and so it's kind of like, just like, anyone who's seen Penn and Teller, spent any time around Penn and Teller, knows that Teller talks all the time, but we all officially pretend that Teller never talks. It's that kind of thing. But anyway, so getting back to my point. What was my point? What was I talking about? Oh, yeah. The drums on the Residents, the Wormwood tour, I thought it was Chris Cutler for a long time. Other people have said it was Toby Dammit, so I'm not sure. Toby Dammit did definitely start performing with them on the Icky Flicks tour, so there's definitely that. But anyway, so Wormwood, phenomenal album. Number 2, Demons Dance Alone. If you go on my other channel, which is severely in need of updating, it's called J Talks Art. I have a whole video on there analyzing and breaking down Demons Dance Alone. What happened was the Residents were on tour in Europe when 9/11 hit, and so they were stranded abroad, cut off from, everyone and everything that they cared about. And they, being cut off from the whole world, they did, they coped with it the only way they knew how, which was writing these songs. And it's such an interesting, it's songs that were written in the aftermath of 9/11, but where everybody else was doing America, fuck yeah, the Residents were doing, these songs of confusion and fear. and all of that, but at the same time, it has some of their all-time best songwriting, some of their all-time best playing, the musicians involved. Nolan Cook is amazing. The aforementioned Toby Dammit, and they just have some incredible sounds, and it's such a surreal experience. Now, coming in at number one is Animal Lover. Animal Lover is easily my favorite Residents album. I got this album when I was in college, and I remember I got a pizza and a Domino's pizza and a soda, and just sat in my dorm room and ate pizza and listened to this album, and I was just on cloud nine. It is such a transcendental experience, and the idea is conceptually it's a very loosely linked concept album. The idea being that it's the human world perceived through the eyes of animals, but it's actually really not even that. It's like in the songs themselves, we have the songs themselves, and then it comes with this picture book, fold out picture book in the original edition. It comes with this fold out picture book that is kind of like it's little vignettes of animals watching what happens in the songs, the events in the songs, and telling their versions of it. And so anyway, that said, it's all just really these individual experiences that deal with animals in some abstract way. And there are such fascinating songs. There's a song about there's a song about a woman who's tending to her father while he's in a coma, and it's got this great vocal where it's like, when I think about my father on his sad and lonely trip, and it's such a haunting song. Then there's they have a song on there about the tulip, the mass craze where was it, in Holland, I think it was, in the Middle Ages. There was this massive craze for owning tulips, and people were like going, selling their homes and selling all of their property just to have a tulip. And it's kind of like, it's this very fascinating song about, cultural chaos, pop culture trends and cultural chaos and that sort of thing. And there's one song on there about a cult for white people where they stay in bed all day, and it's like they're laying in like rows and rows and rows of beds where they can just stay in bed all day. And it's the whole album is so surreal. Everything the Residents do is surreal, but it's so beautiful and so captivating and so just one of those records you disappear into, like Dark Side of the Moon or Wish You Were Here or something like that. There's incredible guitar work, there's incredible percussion, incredible songwriting. To me, it's just the best realization of everything the Residents are. When it came out, I didn't think they could do anything better than Demons Dance Alone, but man, they sure did. It is such an amazing record. Like, check it out. Just one of those records that you have to... All of these records are really like that. But if you're going to listen to Animal Lover, put on the headphones, lay down, and just drift off. I had some honorable mentions that I wanted to touch on quickly. I really could have done about probably another 20 honorable mentions, but just a few. Tidal in Limbo was my original number 10 choice. That was the album they did with Ronaldo and the Loaf. And I think it's a great introduction to both bands. It's very goofy and surreal, but it's also very well recorded and very well played. And so there's a lot more adept musicianship on it and that kind of thing. Some great writing, and it is just a great fun foray into the world of the Residents. Then you might have been wondering why the Commercial album, which is one of their more beloved releases, more popular releases, why I didn't mention that. Well, that's because I actually would recommend the Commercial album DVD. The Residents are as much a visual arts medium as they are a band. And the commercial album DVD really captures that. What they did was they had some of their own. They had music videos. So the commercial album, if you don't know, the commercial album is an album of 41-minute songs that they made back. They made back in the, I believe, early '80s, and they made this album, was very well received, but it's 41-minute songs, and they made 4 music videos for one for Moisture, one for the Simple Song, one for I'm blanking on titles because it's late and I need to go to bed. But anyway, they made videos for all of these songs, or 4 of the songs, and those were actually early videos on MTV, back when MTV was playing anything they could get their hands on because they needed content. So the Residents were early contributors to MTV. And then for the commercial album DVD, they had the fans, pardon me, they had the fans submit their own music videos, like fan-made music videos for the DVDs, for the songs, and there's such incredible creativity on there. And so to really get the commercial album experience, I think you need the DVD. I don't think the album alone cuts it, especially the video for Easter Woman. Oh my God. And then Icky Flicks, the Icky Flicks DVD. This one's really cool. And this was actually the first Residents Residents product, I should say, that I ever owned, was the Icky Flicks DVD. And it was such a great introduction to the band, because what they did was they compiled all of their music video content into one DVD, and then they did re-recorded new versions of some of the songs, or all of the songs rather, to kind of have a choice between the two and everything. And it's full of Easter eggs, and there's lots of really cool visual stuff in there. It's just, it's so much fun. It's so fascinating. And again, when, like I said about Duck Stab, when I was in college, I would show people clips from the Icky Flicks DVD to creep them out. And then Whatever Happened to Vileness Fats, the infamous abandoned Residents movie project that was kind of semi-resurrected and reincorporated into this new movie that they just put out. But the soundtrack to that is really cool, great instrumental stuff, and really great musicianship for such an early period in their career too, and really good realization. You get the feeling they were influenced by like Ennio Morricone and that kind of thing. And my final recommendation, like I said, I could do a lot more. The Bunny Boy is another good album I meant to put on here. But anyway, Mushroom, really cool album, was originally conceived of as a ballet or a modern dance soundtrack. A really beautiful, fascinating, kaleidoscopic instrumental music. Great if you're into, like Philip Glass, Koyaanisqatsi kind of things, combined with, I don't know, like Nash the Slash or something like that. So anyway, there you have it. My top 10 Residents albums and DVDs. The Residents are amazing. I have a list of album ideas that I've wanted to do for years that's like a mile long. And one of the ones I want to get to is doing a Residents tribute album. I've got some really cool ideas for arrangements for Residents songs that I'd love to do. Anyway, there you go. Peace.